Hello and welcome to another episode of Live here on Keystroke Medium. I am Josh Hayes here with Chuck Manley and Scoot Moonay.
It is true.
It is just Scoot today.
I'm good. I'm good, Josh. How are you?
Wait,
How you doing, Josh?
No, I'm great.
I'm good,
great.
Josh. How are you?
I'm great. This is going to be the best show ever. You guys don't even understand how great this show is going to be. Holy crap. It's the No Drama Llama.
No Drama Llama. My favorite.
Rosie's Taqueria.
If you ever wanted to know what it feels like to be high on methamphetamine,
try it. No, don't try it. I do not. That was a 100% a joke.
This show is not a medically approved program.
Yeah, don't.
We do not approve of that message.
Woo!
That's how Chuck gets in timeout.
And bye, Chuck. Hi, Rick. Rick gets the. I feel like I was like gnawing on the microphone. He gets the golf clap of appreciation. Thank you, Rick. If you're watching the show live, just know that it feels like I have like chugged 3 pots of coffee and now my entire body is like on fire.
Your brainstem is vibrating at this point.
Yeah, I'm having hallucinations, but it's not actually hallucinating. We're going to talk about character development today and have a roundtable. I want to do kind of like a mix of AMA / conversation. So if you guys have any questions about character development or if you have any thoughts on the topic, throw them in the chat. I don't know, make a capitalization character in all caps. So if we make sure that we can see it as the chat goes through.
Internet shout.
Yes, internet shoutage.
Yeah.
Well, let's talk about our updates. I have shelves in my office now. It's starting to look like a for real office / studio.
They're kind of massive.
Yeah. So I spent several weeks looking for shelves to go behind me, and I couldn't find anything. Like some of the shelves I found were like $400 a piece. And I was like, that is ridiculous to spend on shelves, especially since I wanted to do something like this. Like, it's not just one bookshelf. I have way too much stuff for one bookshelf. And so the other day I was looking at Lowe's for, I forget what I was looking for, but I found these, and these are actually like garage shop shelves.
Yep.
And they're like $82 a piece. And they come as a modular set. So like you could do this, like this behind me, where instead of stacking it all the way up, you could do
yeah, I have that exact setup in my garage.
Yeah.
Without all the toys.
Right. Well.
Are those? Do you have lighting in the shelves? I'm just curious, or is that just a coincidence of words?
Up here, I can't even. Right here, there is, and I'm going to do it on the rest of them. I just didn't buy enough to fit on all the shelves. Right here, you can see some of the neon lights that are hanging right there. I just need to get the adhesive to push them.
You're right, my left.
Your military left.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's coming along. I've got to put up the posters on the wall, and then I've got a lot of other space to fill on the walls. Also, I did some cable management. Let's see if I can. That's my writing setup. And there used to be
very tiny
a whole bunch of messy wires underneath. I spent like an hour yesterday doing cable management with zip ties. So now you can only see like one wire.
How big is your office? Like, how's it measure out? Like 10 by 12? What?
What's a bedroom? Isn't it a bedroom?
It's
an extra room.
I don't. You know what? I'm not sure. I can't remember. I know that I've measured it. It's really long though, and the closet is not a closet. It's just an open. So it's not finished.
I kind of like the way you've got it set up for a writing space and a podcasting space. I'm just wondering if I could pull something like that off in here. Huh.
Well, it's also nice because I've got the window right there.
Yeah.
No view.
Yeah.
But while I'm writing, I have some like sunlight or whatever. Silent Wolf says, yes, Josh / Battle Station. It's my command center. That's right. It's where all the magic happens. I like it too because it's one of the standing desks, so I can here. Let me watch this.
He's so wired.
That's true.
Oh yeah. Oh, you can do it from over there. That's so remote.
It's like I'm using the force.
It's so somebody can sneak in behind you, start raising and lowering your desk while you're writing. You're like, I don't understand what's happening.
Like, what's happening? I sometimes do it. Oh, look at Chuck. Yeah, there he goes. And Scott has the same one. This is the electronic standing desk episode for everybody that was wondering.
Yeah.
Like just do the whole show like that, Chuck.
I want to see if mine breaks something because I don't know what it's going to knock out of the way. Ah! I got mine at Costco for
I'm just
fairly
gonna
cheap.
you play that elevator game with your kids where you're standing behind the counter and you're like,
Yeah, you like walk down.
yeah.
Okay, ready? 1, 2, 3, race.
Oh wait, I'm coming back down. All right.
Nope, I'm ahead. I'm winning.
Oh, this is gonna be an awesome show. I don't know if you guys
Awesome.
know this. It's gonna be the best show.
Josh, did you get any writing done this week?
Actually, yes, I did. I got some good transcription done on Gods of Fire. And I can't remember if I told you this last week, but I printed out the outline, and I brought it with me in the truck while I was dropping my kids off yesterday. And so I get about an hour and 10 minutes of it's one way, hour and 10 minutes. So whichever direction I'm going and I don't have the kids, I try to dictate the entire time. And so coming home yesterday, I just turn on the mic. I do it like a just real brief look at the part of this story that I'm going to transcribe on or dictate on, and then I just run through the scene.
Right.
I got Corey Gillip, Toy Shelves of Valor. That is true. Standing desk go. So I got about 1,200 words yesterday. I think I got about 15,000 words for the week, which is pretty good for me.
That's nice.
And did a lot of good edit work on the second Tranquility book, which is coming along pretty nicely. And my box set, the Valor box set, is doing extremely well. We launched that, I think, 2 weeks ago now, and hit the bestseller list in Mill Sci-Fi. I think Mill Sci-Fi Space Marine, I think, was the bestseller category we hit. And it's still, we pushed it again today, and it's around 1,600, I think, or 1,000, I can't remember. So doing pretty well at 99 cents for the trilogy. So I'm pretty excited about that. And then what else I've been doing? I did some planning work for a story that I pitched to Steve and Rhett a couple of weeks ago, and they liked that. And I think it's going to be kind of a fun story. So other than that, not much. I had my kids all for the long weekend. It was spring break. So I had several days where I just hung out with them and really didn't do anything. Let's see. Silent Wolf asks, okay, do you count revisions as words written or types? But just curious because my words in the case of spreadsheet have stopped, but I have been revising each day. So sometimes I do this differently depending on where I'm at in the process. Like if I'm revising Tranquility or editing Tranquility, I don't track a lot of those words because it's, unless I'm really paying attention, it's hard to do that in Word. There are some times where I'll like write down the total words before I start editing, and then instead of deleting, I do strike through text, and then go back after I do the math to figure out how much words I wrote. I'll delete all the strike through text, but sometimes that just takes too long, and then I just start hitting delete. If I'm doing it in Scrivener, it's a little easier.
Another thing to keep in mind is to not get too, in my opinion, to not get too obsessed with that number, that words written number, because revision and things like that are part of the process. I think sometimes it's better to just track how much time you spent working on your book, and that's like legitimate working, not surfing the internet and
doing research.
Doing research, right? But if you're spending legitimate amounts of time revising and editing or whatever, then, you need to give yourself credit for that and don't get too hung up on that word count day stuff, because the other stuff matters too.
I track both, and I have my spreadsheet up to give me a running average daily. So I can see my daily average. Like I'll have a couple days where I barely do an hour, but my average day to day will be around 3 hours is kind of where I'm holding. I've always thought if I could put in, a certain amount of time and quality words in, that it would eventually lead to success. And it helps.
You track a lot though, right? You track a lot. Like you track your time. I
track time and words per project, and then it all kind of populates into one daily word count thing. But we talked about this yesterday on the phone or the day before, Josh. But I'm an add inner when I edit, when I revise and proofread, because I tend to write fast enough that like I'll be like, oh, you know what, this could use a little bit, more scene setting up here, or this character, this is a thought I want to explore a little bit more. And so I almost always so if I edit for like 5 hours, I'll get like 110 words or something. So I get a few words. Whereas sometimes when I've edited, I've like cut thousands and thousands of words, and it would be pointless to track the words at that point. But usually I wind up adding a tiny, tiny surplus just by
Scott, the way you track
fleshing things out.
You should have been a CPA instead of a cop.
No, because I track it differently. I track it differently every day. So they'd be like, well, what are your numbers? Well, it depends on what day your spreadsheet.
Depends on what spreadsheet he's using too.
Which set of books do you want to see?
Which books do you want? You want the real books or the doctored books? But I'll do variations. I think in 2020 and 2019 or 2021, I'm trying to not change my spreadsheet, but I had like 84 spreadsheets that I'd made throughout the year to track my stuff. So I'm constantly tweaking it because I want to do one thing or cut one thing off, or now it's too complicated. So I simplify it, then I recomplicate it. So it's kind of like a video game addiction, the spreadsheets, because the whole point behind it is I want to feel like I'm getting someplace. That's all I want is progress. And sometimes it's hard to see progress. When you're writing a book that takes you a year to write, you need progress. You need something to show you have progress. And it doesn't matter whether that's a word count or a time count or, stack the pages or whatever.
One of the things that I found too, especially with the transcription method that I'm trying, and with the project that I just pitched, Savage Stars, I'm going to try to do that like 100% transcribed. But what I'm finding on the Gods of Fire project, as I'm transcribing, like I'll get on the Peloton bike and exercise for a minute and then transcribe and then load it in the computer. One thing I found, like Scott is saying, is I'll go through and actually end up adding words to the draft based on the transcription, and kind of, you have to there's always cleanup you have to do for stuff like that. But I usually add a whole bunch of stuff. Anyway, that's my update. Let's Scott, what's your update this week?
Okay, so I made a spreadsheet. I didn't make a spreadsheet. I made a worksheet. This is new. So since a while back I was trying to print something out for like work or something, or like to turn in our taxes, or I can't remember what it was, but our printer is always jacked up because you buy a printer and then the ink runs out. Well, I just got a laser jet, which I'm not quite sure why I didn't do that a long time ago.
I got a laser too.
So it's only black and white. It works 1,000 times better. It's never out of ink. It always breaks. But so I made myself a worksheet.
Hold on, I'm gonna make that big. There you go.
So I just started this worksheet today. But see, I have 4 projects. I have my time blocks and then words per one, and then I have some other stuff I want to do throughout the day. I'm trying to remember. Now I don't know if I'll stick to it, obviously, but if I can get into the habit,
the laser jet works pretty well.
It works great.
And is it more cost effective than the color
I think definitely over long term it's way more cost effective, because I was buying ink all the time. The last one I bought was an inkjet printer. It had these refillable ones, and you're supposed to get like hundreds and hundreds of uses out of this, and it was like real environmental friendly, and it worked for about 6 months, and then it was all screwed up, and I could never get it to set right.
Yeah, that's kind of what I'm running into.
The LaserJet just always prints the same.
Yeah, I got a straight laser. I got a straight laser printer. It's not a LaserJet; it's straight laser. But
I think it's whatever. I mix the terms, but it's not an inkjet.
Yeah, it's I think mine's just black and white. But I was looking at like pages printed, because like a lot of the inkjet ones would print it like, I don't know, it's like 18 to 22 words a minute or something like that, and their cartridge was good for like 5,000 pages or something. Like this one does like 38 pages a minute, and it's good for like like 50,000 pages or some ridiculous number.
It's way better.
Yeah.
For a writer, if you don't need a bunch of color graphs and stuff, that's definitely the way to go. I think it's cheaper long term. It's less hassle.
Shut up.
And whatnot.
Oh shit! I'm sorry. I was talking to my dog. I'm sorry.
I thought you were talking to Rick in the chat.
No, I'm sorry. My dog's name is Riggs, and he's whining at the door right now. I'm so sorry. I did not mean to think anybody. I wasn't telling you guys to shut up.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
Silent Wolf would like to know if you could put your worksheet up in the KSM group.
Yeah, I can try to do that. I may have some. Last time I put some up, nobody could see it, but I will. I'll upload it. It's just
send it to me, and I can upload it, dude.
It's actually on. I'll have to. It's actually part of my Google spreadsheet, so I'll have to figure out how to give you just that page or something.
Yeah, just send me the whole thing. I can do it. What else? So what else have you been up to?
Okay, so I'm working on. I'm basically done with Blue Armada, kind of my solo passion project. I've been tinkering at for a couple of years. I decided to go ahead and put that out. I put up on pre-order so I can start doing. Promotions and stuff. So it's an interesting story. I have a lot of fun writing it. I'm worried that it's going to hit all the tropes, but miss a couple key ones. And so what I'm the most nervous about
project right now, right?
Yeah. And I'm nervous about it because I really have fun writing it, but it doesn't mean people are going to like it. And two of the main characters are married and they don't really have any drama. And I'm not sure that is going to work for most
That's
but it might.
Unrealistic as hell.
I know it makes no sense at all. Completely. I mean, you thought Faster Than Life was unrealistic. We also have marriage work. Well, there's some drama, but there's no like cheating or doing shitty stuff to each other. There's drama. There is some drama, but not like that. Not like your traditional stuff. So I like that. I decided to start to blog a novel. This is the big thing. So I wrote my Alien Invasion series. I was going to do 5 books. I did 4. Kind of feels complete to me, but I know people are always going to kind of want to know where they went to the stars and whatnot. And I initially envisioned one more book when I first came up with the concept, but I don't necessarily have the time or the resources to buy another $1,000 book cover and all that. So I'm going to blog it, and I'm going to write a chapter a week, have my editor run through it, put them up on my blog, on my webpage every week. And then when it's all done, then I'll do a hard edit and revisions, and then I'll publish it the traditional way. And we'll just see if that gives anybody any interest in the series, and it kind of satisfies the people who want to keep reading beyond book 4, because it's not doing bad. It's not a huge grand slam moneymaker hit, but they have, I think the first book has 108 reviews, and then I got like 40 or 60 on the other books, 8 on the newest one because it's brand new. But so I'm doing that, but mostly I spent most of my time writing Orphan Wars 2 with Jane Chaney and his writing team. So working on that, very excited about where that series is going. We got Luke Daniels for the series. We're going to do a release here pretty soon. The audiobooks and that. And then when all that's done, and if I fit in all my other stupid daily tasks and work, then I'm working on a thriller, which I'm trying to decide whether or not to do under a pen name or under my own name. I think a lot of people said it's smarter to do a pen name if it's very clear genre differences, but also it's twice as much work because you have to manage all the social media and promotions and stuff for the pen name, and you're starting from complete zero. And so I don't know if I ever finish it. I may just.
Are you wanting to separate it so that it it differentiates you between genres or what?
Yeah.
Well, yeah, that's the main thing and I don't know, because the common knowledge at this point in the indie industry is that you pollute your genre, it'll screw everything up. But I don't know if that's as true as people think. Now, I don't think that your genre readers will jump. It's not like, well, I have 50,000 science fi readers. They're all going to read the thrillers. It's probably not going to work. But I don't think that writing a thriller or fantasy is going to ruin your sci-fi.
Right. I don't think it will either.
So I'll probably just enter my own name.
I mean, if you were doing reverse harem or something like that.
If you're doing something it's shockingly different.
Erotica or something.
Yeah, I talked to Craig Martell briefly. I asked him what he thought, and he said that he did pen names, and it's just a lot of work for not much reward in doing the different pen names. So,
Nagley said Facebook looked up on him probably on my writing. YouTube wiring. Okay, yeah. If you're watching on Facebook, it might be screwing up. I don't know. I don't see anything wrong on our end. But yeah,
Okay.
coming over to the
Yeah.
YouTube.
What about
feed.
you, What about you, Chuck? What are you doing?
Oh, well, I finally wrapped up the softball season with my daughter. They brought home the league championship, and
Nice.
she actually got to score the winning run, which was kind of cool.
Oh, that's awesome.
But I've got about a 2.5, 3 week break until tryouts for the next season start, and my plan is to buckle down over that time period and get Jack Dark Book 2 done and get that to Athon. I've been when I'm sitting around at the ball. Well, when I was sitting around at the ball field and stuff, I've got superheroes on the brain for some reason. I can't stop myself. I've been doing some world building, and I've got a story idea for something in that genre. And I know it's like a crap seller and all that stuff, but I think I'm going to end up having a side passion project of some superhero fiction going. But
I know. I think so, regardless of what it makes, I think sometimes writing what you want to write over what could potentially make you money. I mean, well,
I'll be honest with you, dude. I don't really ever focus on what could potentially make me money.
Right.
I pretty much always write what I want to write, which is why I'm not, more successful. I
started reading a book based on what you're just saying. I started reading a book called Drive. I think his name is Daniel Pink is the author.
Yeah, I know that one.
Yeah. So it's a really interesting book, but and I've already was aware of these studies, but it talks about the way motivation is, because 100 years ago, Industrial Revolution, they had the scientific management, and basically they came up with, you reward what you want in managing employees. You reward what you want them to do more, you punish what you want them to do less, and everything's hunky-dory. But what they found in all these scientific studies is that doesn't work at all.
Right.
And
People
what
aren't
happens?
robots.
Yeah, they're not robots. They're not money-making machines. They're people who want to self-actualize and do all this other stuff. But the studies they've shown for certain types of tasks is that if you reward a behavior, like you take kids and they like to draw and they draw a whole bunch, and then you start giving them a reward, but it has to be a reward they expect to get. If it's a random reward, it doesn't do this. But if you say, I'll give you $1 for every picture you draw, and then you take the reward away, then they'll stop drawing. They'll draw less than their baseline level. And that's really interesting. I thought when you apply that to what we do as writers, we take something we love, we make it all about the money, and then we wonder why we get burnt out, stressed out, and blocked.
Because you turned it into a job.
Yeah.
So how do you find the balance is what I'm looking for.
Right. And that's absolutely true. But I mean, if you're in a position where you're trying to, like, I'm in a very luxurious position because I'm at a point in my life where the money's not as big an issue for me as a lot of folks.
Yeah.
My wife has an extremely good job, and I'm the stay-at-home dad. I can, I do all that stuff, and we're okay financially, so I can afford to just kind of focus on my passion projects.
Yep.
But if you're somebody that can't do that, I think the best idea is to, have two projects going at once: the money maker, and then the one that satisfies your artistic side.
Yeah.
I think the balance lies in managing your projects and managing your expectations.
It's all about choices you have to make, just like your characters have to make these choices, which defines and builds the characters, which is what we're going to talk about. But,
do what you got to do to do what you want to do.
Yeah. And, and that's like I said, I want to write for passion, but I'm extremely motivated by money because I want to make a significant change in my life, and it requires money.
Right. No, I totally understand that. And, more power to you. Let me know if I can help.
So
what about
speaking
your
of,
updates, Chuck?
Huh?
What
we're
about
talking about softball and what else?
Oh, like I said, the softball and the other stuff with the kids is eating into a lot of my time over this past season. But like I said, I got like a 2.5, 3 week break, and I'm going to try and buckle down to get Jack Dark 2 done. And I've already started writing actually on Jack Dark 3, so I'll dive into that next, have my little side project going. And that's really about it. That's I did... never mind.
Let me do the. Let me do
don't want to put that out there yet.
Let me do the show sponsor real quick, and then we can jump in and talk about our topic. And like I said, if you have comments in the live chat about character development or what you do specifically,
We spent 30 minutes starting the show.
Hey, it was all our raising our automatic test.
You have to do things. Sometimes it's worth doing right, and starting a show is worth doing right.
This should be a consistent thing on the show now. We all have our rising desk races. Today's sponsor is Empire Reborn by A.K. DuBoff, Amy DuBoff. She's a fantastic writer, and she has just published, I think just a couple of days ago, Empire Reborn, which I'm going to put the link in the live chat. So if you're watching, go check this book out. It's only 99 cents right now, but I'm not sure how long it's going to stay at that price. I think it's the introductory price of the book, and then this is the first book in a new series by Amy. And the description is thus: break the treaty, be destroyed. We forgot. Now we pay the price. Jason Steinlinen lives in the shadows of greatness. He worked hard to become a TSS officer in his own right, but having war heroes for parents is hard to top. When Jason is assigned to investigate a mysterious attack, he finds evidence of powerful trans-dimensional beings never seen before, or so he thought. Jason soon learns that critical information was lost through the millennia. Taran's had an ancient treaty with the aliens, and unfortunately, rogue actions by a shadow faction within the Empire just broke the peace. With the future of the Empire hanging in the balance, Jason must find a way to unite the Taran worlds, including the lost colony of Earth, against the mounting threat. There's just one problem. How do you fight an enemy you can't see or touch? Perfect for fans of epic sci-fi featuring sprawling galactic empires, drama, intrigue, and psionic abilities. Empire Reborn is the first book in the Taran Empire series, a new entry point into the best-selling Cadicle universe of Doom. Get your copy today of Empire Reborn by Amy DuBoff, and click the link in the live chat. It'll be in the show notes after the fact, done by the one and only Ken Brits. So thanks, Brits, for the show notes. Let's talk about character. You brought this up in our Chuck chat. Talking about
it's like a TED Talk, but a Chuck chat.
Talking about Justice League, which is interesting.
Well, yeah,
I'm in the middle of watching the 4-hour movie.
Yeah, it's a monster. It's a monster, no doubt. Yeah, well, we had Mulberry on the Writer's Journey, and I inserted myself into that show last Friday, and we were talking about
completely a slick move on your end, by the way.
Thank you. Thanks. Well, I can be aggressive when I need to be, but yeah, we were talking with him about character development. He brought up some good points about how he interviews people and does stuff for his characters. And then I watched the theatrical release of Justice League on Wednesday night. And then
I should have done that before.
And then Thursday, I watched the Snyder Cut.
Yeah.
And just so I could mentally compare, the two products. And there is some really interesting studies in character differences within a genre, because obviously they're both superhero genre movies,
right? With
the exact same characters and essentially the exact same plot and story, but the way Snyder did the characters versus the way Whedon did the characters really kind of brings out the importance of characterization. Because as a film, I thought Snyder Cut was better simply because it meshed better with his first two movies. But his take on the characters, especially Superman, I much preferred the Whedon version. And I think that was that brings up the interesting topic of how much your characters' attitudes and the way they're presented to the reader or the viewer, however you want to say it, how much that changes and affects the feel and the atmosphere of a story.
So it's interesting because I barely remember the first two movies that you mentioned, the Superman and Superman versus
Man of Steel
Batman.
and Batman v Superman. Yeah.
Because I don't remember Spider-Man. I don't remember Superman dying at the end of
Batman v Superman.
Batman v Superman.
Yes, he did.
And I didn't watch the Joss Whedon version, which I think after I finish the Zack Snyder version, I'll go and watch the other one, because I thought I missed something when they started talking. By the way, spoilers. I thought I missed something about, like, they started showing the mother boxes in the film before they said anything about what they were. So I thought I had missed something, like in previous films, going, okay, I don't know anything about what's going on here. Did I miss it? But then I thought they did a really good job doing the backstory of those boxes and the kind of the backstory of Darkseid and of Steppenwolf, because I was coming into it from a feel of like the MCU, where everything in Endgame and Infinity War was kind of like it was foreshadowed in movies before, but nothing was. It's just basically just bringing the characters together. Yeah,
you'll find in the two that, like I said, a lot of the plot and the stuff you're describing, that's all in the Snyder Cut too. The biggest difference in the two was the attitudes and appearances of the characters.
Yeah.
So give an example.
Well, for instance, Snyder, he likes his stuff darker. He likes his stuff realistic. So in the Whedon version, it was much more like Silver Age comic booky. Superman had on the blue and the red, and he was, I'm Superman, and and I'm a hero, and yada yada yada, and he's got those high hope kind of inspirational kind of appearance and presence. But like in the Snyder Cut, he was kind of like smug, and he, at one point he's got the bad guy down and he's punching him in the face and hitting him with heat vision, and he's kind of like smiling to himself because he's just fucking Superman, and he's
like relishing in the violence.
He feels good about it, And there's one scene in both movies towards the beginning where Wonder Woman saves a bunch of kids on a field trip in a museum that gets hijacked by some terrorists. And in the Whedon version, it's pretty much the exact same fight scene. She comes in and she's, throwing guys around and yada, yada, yada. But it's not super graphic. It's comic book violence.
Yeah.
In the Snyder version, she comes in and throws a guy against the wall, and you see his fucking head burst open.
Right.
When he hits which is what would happen.
Right.
In my opinion, I prefer the more heroic comic booky kind of characters. And there's nothing wrong with what Whedon did, but it changes the tone, because every one of them had zero problem killing dudes. You see what I'm saying?
I think that was the most immediate thing that I noticed about the movie, is that in a lot of superhero movies, you see the fighting and you see, the bad guys going down, but you don't necessarily see like Steppenwolf was like cutting people in half, when he took
very graphically.
Yeah, when he took the cube from the Atlanteans, and he was like just slicing through. And the thing that I thought was interesting was like you could see the blood come out, but it was like blood underwater, which was like a very cool effect. But I liked it because it's just beautifully shot and whatever else. But
right, like I said, as a film, the Snyder Cut is a much better version. It's a better film, in my opinion. I hated the 4:3 aspect ratio, though. That annoyed the shit.
A lot of people are saying that.
That makes me feel like Snyder's kind of just a full of himself douchebag.
Kind of pretentious.
Yeah. But overall, construction-wise, it was a perfect follow-up to Man of Steel and Batman v Superman. my personal preference was I prefer I like the Batman who doesn't use guns.
Right.
Even though
that was the other thing I noticed is that
even though it's completely unrealistic, and
right.
you know, I get it. I get people's criticism of it, but I've always felt like the superhero genre was about trying to be better.
Right.
You know, it was trying to be, you know, he doesn't use guns because that's what the criminals use. And
right.
The idea is not to be like your adversary, but to be better than your adversary. That's why Superman was always Mr. Hope, and let's try to talk it out before we start throwing punches and stuff. You know, and Snyder just goes the complete other direction with it. He just is like, no, that this is what they would do. And I can't argue with that. If there were really people like that in the world, yeah, they'd be dropping motherfuckers left and right. But
what was that horror movie that was based on Superman?
Brightburn.
So I got a very Brightburn feel out of when Superman first came back.
I agree with that. Yeah.
When they brought him back to life or whatever, and then he started fighting everybody, and he'd go into the air, and his eyes started glowing red. I was like, "Holy shit, that looks like Brightburn."
Yeah.
Rick says Cyborg is the biggest example of character differences in the movie, which I've seen a lot of comments about that too, where they really expanded his character. I really liked the Cyborg character. I liked, all of the little character asides that they did in the movie. It felt very novelesque to me. Like the whole presentation so far is very novelesque, where a lot of film will take the novel and cut out all that stuff and just put in the action bits. This movie felt like
and that's exactly what Whedon did.
Yeah,
I mean, he took most of the footage from the Snyder Cut, and he colorized it, reshot some stuff, and turned it into, you know, it just streams from one action sequence to the next.
Well, I think that's what why I don't like a lot of movies based on books is because they take all that character stuff out. One of the things I like to do with the characters is, you know, find the arc and then kind of develop that as it progresses. And so a lot of that stuff, I'll know what the arc is going to be before I start writing, instead of, like, I know a lot of people just kind of write and then they figure out what the character does as they go. I like to find out where I want the character to be, and then work out that development as I
start with the end and work backwards.
Yeah, so that way I can seed in, like, if there's some I don't know, like I'm trying to think of something off the top of my head. If there's for instance, there's a character in Tranquility that doesn't like another character. They feel like this other character isn't trustworthy, and they have a lot of insecurities about this other person and distrust about what their motivations are and stuff. And throughout the book, that character experiences events with the character that he doesn't like, and that changes his assumption or his feelings towards that character. And by the end of the book, they're having side-by-side battles where they trust each other, and he's implicitly trusting her to do things. So that's part of his character arc. And so I figured that out beforehand, saying, okay, we want them to be basically partners by the end of the book, but I want them to grow into that instead of being partners at the beginning. So then you have to see in these little drama things, even just small things about how she operates or why she's doing what she's doing. You see in that mistrust, and then you can, like, progressively enhance his trust of the character. And I mean, that's just a little.
No, I get what you're saying, because, like, when I wrote my Paragons trilogy, I had two main characters, and I wanted to do sort of 180 degree out of sync character development with them. Like the female lead, Erin, she starts off as this angry, kind of wrong side of the tracks, pissed off, screw the world, dropping F-bombs every other word kind of person. And I wanted her to be more optimistic and heroic by the end of that series. And the other guy, Israel, he's a middle class guy with a master's degree. He's kind of, he's a reporter in Chicago, and he's kind of seen some ugly in the world because of what he covers. But he's still very, like, yeah, it's going to be okay. It's going to be this. And by the end of the series, I wanted him to be more like she was at the beginning.
Yeah.
And then they kind of play off each other that way. And it's true. I think when you're doing that, when you're changing a character like that from beginning to end, I think you have to treat it like its own little plot. You have to know at what point their attitude is going to interact with a certain circumstance to make those slight character changes going down the road.
Yeah.
And I think you have to really put if you're going to really do hardcore character development like that, you have to really put thought into how would this person at this point react to this thing happening, because people are going to call you on it if they're, you're going to hear, oh, she wouldn't have done that if it, that, blah, blah, blah. So you've got to really put some thought into keeping it as realistic as possible and believable. It's not necessarily realistic, but believable within the context of the setting.
So how much character development is necessary? I mean, change. Because you can have
Depends on the
characters.
story, I think.
Well, so I just thought of one of the things that I did for a short story a couple of years ago in Steve Bolyer's superhero anthology. What was the story name? It's called Hero Worship. And this superhero anthology was supposed to be based on your main character is supposed to be superheroes, and I kind of took it in a different direction. And my main character was not a superhero, and I wrote it through 2 timelines. And in the present timeline, he absolutely hates superheroes and blames a superhero for the death of, I think it was his sister. Throughout the course of the story, you find out that they were in a really bad car crash, and the superhero saved the main character and then this other person or whatever, but he didn't save the kid's sister. And so both timelines, like both events, the present and the future, kind of progress forwardly side by side as the story continues. And by the end of it, he is stuck in his own car crash. He's close to being dead, and he is rescued by the person that the superhero rescued when they were kids. So it was kind of like this. What's the phrase I'm trying to think of? It was kind of like a double realization of,
right.
Things that happen in your life.
Ripple effect.
Double
Right.
epiphany.
Yeah, exactly. And so that was kind of fun to play with character like that. But I always try to kind of, you know me, I'm a huge plotter, so I like to know the plot ahead of time. But I also, if you do find those character transitions like you're talking about, Chuck, where the character believes something at the end, changes and believes something else, a lot of times that will add a lot to your main plot that you didn't originally anticipate. Because of just how you have to make those transitions for the characters, it can also affect how the plot advances as well. So Scott, what about on your, you have a lot of books that are mil sci-fi related, that you have military characters that start out in a place where they're trying to fit in or trying to advance through the ranks, and you also have like a character like Reaper who isn't trying to advance anything. He's just trying to survive. And so how do you mix that? Like with Reaper, it's a very he's like the anti-hero, right? So how do you play with the character development on that?
It's interesting because sometimes I think my character change and development is either super gradual, or it's almost like it's more like a reveal of their character than actual change. Because so the last Reaper, he starts out as basically, or he's like in Maslow's hierarchy of needs, he's actualizing. So his first need is he has to survive. And when he gets to a certain level of survival, then he can start to have a team of people that he trusts, and they can have influence on him. And then they have more influence than he expected. So it's change, but it's not super overt change, but it's more like he's opening up to these people, like this is the real me. So when people see how it came, the last Reaper, they see this former assassin who's just a straight killer, doesn't care about anything, but that's not his true character, because he became a killer out of a guardian mindset and the need to do justice and right wrongs, but he kind of went down into the depths because of that. And then eventually they set him up, framed him, put him in prison, try to kill him, all that stuff. So on his way back, he changes, but mostly he's basically subverting all the other characters' views of himself, because they're assuming that he's just this hard killer, wants to kill everybody, when really he only wants to kill other people when they're threatening people he cares about.
Yeah.
And so it's a revelation of kind of his true character as it goes through there. And I'm sure there is change, because he does kind of learn and has to give and take a little bit as he goes through, but it's not a huge change. So that's why I was asking that question, because, I don't know if I'm doing something wrong or I'm not being intentional enough about it, but I kind of just let him go. And I think the change is me learning about the character as I go through. I'm discovering the character's personality as I write, and it almost always revolves around some choice he has to make. You know?
Well, I mean, there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, it's kind of the difference between plotting and pantsing. It's kind of the same thing. If you're just going to feel it out along with the character as you're writing, as long as it works in the end, it doesn't really matter how you get there.
My question about it is, and I had the same thing with Reaper as with the characters you're describing, is if you start out with a character who is going to have a positive change by the end of the book, so it has to, by definition, he has to start out being kind of unlikable, he or she.
Right.
And so that's the thing, is how do you get people to buy into this character who has all these flaws and is, a murderous SOB, and get them to buy into him and be on their side long enough to see the change.
Yeah, you've gotta show the crystals in the crap. You've gotta, maybe they're rude and they're brash and they're whatever, very unlikable. But then you show the reader that when nobody else is around, he gives $50 to a homeless guy.
Yeah.
You show that they have some goodness in them, but for whatever reason they don't share that, and then their change is, going through whatever change they need to go through for that to come out.
Well, that technique,
more comfortable.
That technique works really well for in the other direction too. And you see that like in The Boys with that superhero, where they're presented as being heroes, but then when you see what they do in private, they're really pretty despicable.
They're
that's the whole thing about integrity. Integrity is about what you do when no one's looking.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
Well, it kind of brings up the point too about, if you're just developing the character as you go along and you don't have like a preconceived idea of where you want the character to go, kind of brings up like a kind of cautionary tale of having a change in the character that's not I'm losing words.
Not what you're looking for.
It's not foreshadowing.
Right?
It's like Daenerys at the end of Game of Thrones in season 8, where she just makes this complete flip of not wanting to kill innocent people, and then in one 30-minute span, she turns into a crazy, monstrous killing machine and just starts.
But that's due to the medium. If you read the books, it makes complete sense what she did, because she had been ruthless all the way through the books.
No, I understand that. What I'm saying is that while you're developing the character, make sure that you're hitting those landmark points so that the progression seems natural.
So it makes sense by the time you reach it. Right.
It's an inevitable, surprising but inevitable if you really look at the facts. This character basically had to do that. Well,
and that's what I say, like it kind of leads to plot development too, because if you know where you want the character to be at, but you also have another plot that you're working with, those specific waypoints that you have planned out for the character arc can affect and then even enhance other things that are going on with the main plot.
So, and that also brings up the interesting, you're talking about getting them where they want to be, kind of where you want them to be, kind of thing. That brings up interesting points of characters being forced to do something that they're adamant against. And that makes me think of going back to Zack Snyder and his superhero movies. In Man of Steel, when at the end of the book, Superman is forced to kill Zod. He has to choose between snapping Zod's neck and watching Zod heat vision some family to death. And he's adamant that he's not going to use his powers to take life, but at the same time, if he doesn't, and that kind of sets up the tone of that entire trilogy.
Right.
And that's a good way to initiate, character change too. Give them that impossible choice.
Best of two bad choices.
Yeah, exactly. And that shows character development as well, because it puts them in that hard, change or die kind of position.
Puts them in the crucible of character,
whether they like it or not.
One of my favorite one of my favorite villains of all time, and one of my favorite storylines for that villain is Arthas in the Warcraft universe. And Arthas starts out as a righteous paladin for good, and his mission is to eradicate the scourge that's it's basically the undead and some otherworldly demons that are causing ruckus in his land. And so his mission is to go and stop the spread of that. And then they're doing a really good job at kind of eradicating the scourge. And then they come to this city of Strathome, and all the inhabitants are being turned by the scourge. And there comes a decision where it's either we run the risk of infecting this entire area, because if some of these people get out and it spreads, we'll never be able to stop it, and destroying the entire city. And everybody that's with him is like, we can contain it. And in his mind, the only way to stop it is to just destroy the entire town and everyone in it. And he is so focused on defeating the scourge that he's blinded to the savageness of what he's trying to do, and everybody's telling him, no, we can't do this, no, we can't do this. And so he basically ends up burning the entire town to the ground, and then goes on this campaign to find basically the ultimate weapon against the evil. But then what he finds is basically the evil, and the evil was kind of tempting him and pushing him in the right direction. And then when he finds this sword, and then he also finds this helmet, it basically turns him into what's called the Lich King. And he is basically turned into the very thing that he was trying to destroy because of his determination to eradicate. He was willing to do basically anything to stop it. And the progression of his character is amazing. And even though it's a what is it, a reverse hero?
It's the fall of a hero kind of thing.
Right. Yeah. It's one of the best storylines I've ever come across in terms of character development for a bad guy, because he wasn't just trying to take over the world or become the ruler of the land or whatever. He never started out to do that, and I love that. Okay,
so here's a question. Let's say you've got a franchise character like James Bond. All right.
Yep.
There's 30 something. I mean, just a god awful number of movies and books that have been done with James Bond. And you can also apply this to superhero characters like Batman, that's been around for 70 some odd years.
True.
How do you satisfy the need for character development in stories with those characters when those characters have been around so long that there's really nothing left to change?
That's a good point, because you also have
they're kind of static characters,
and you have expectations from the fans.
Right.
How much change do the fans want to see?
Those characters are really there just to solve the problem, and that's the fun of the story. Is how is Batman gonna stop the Joker this time, kind of stuff. How do you fit character development into stories like that to satisfy the people who are looking for character change? What do you guys think?
That's pretty interesting, because I'm reading the Gray Man series right now, which is basically like James Bond, right? And it's basically just a action thriller where this dude literally just kicks everybody's ass. And what I find interesting about these books is they really take leaving out the boring parts to heart in this series, because I just finished book 3, but literally from the first chapter of book 3 to the last chapter of the book, he's basically killing people every chapter, and it's just bam, 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 bam.
Yeah.
And one of the interesting things about his development is it's basically like a quasi love story that he ends up having with one of the female characters. And it's interesting in the fact that he hasn't had a female interest like this before. I mean, kind of in the second book, but it wasn't a love interest. It was more of like a mutual surviving relationship where they were both kind of relying on each other to get through what they were trying to do. So the author developed that relationship in the third book really well. And it'll be interesting as I go into the fourth book to see how he either improves on that or doesn't. Because like a lot of, like you're saying, in a lot of James Bond movies or just books in general, he has a love interest for that book. And then the very next book, he doesn't have that love interest.
But is that a change in character or a change in circumstance? I mean, some people are not satisfied with the story unless there's actual character growth. And granted, action-adventure readers probably aren't, the number of people with that attitude probably isn't that high within the action-adventure genre. But
right.
I still think there needs to be some kind of movement. And it doesn't necessarily have to be with the main character. Because my answer to that question is, if I've got a character and I've written 25 books with him as the main character and he's just the hero, maybe he takes on an apprentice or a partner or something, and you have them change with him kind of along for the ride, or with his influence or whatever.
Nathan says in the chat that he don't know that people are looking for Bond to grow. They want Bond tropes and Bond.
And that is a perfectly valid point. I mean, that's true.
It's kind of more focused on the how he does things rather than the why.
Yeah, it's back to the reader expectations and what they're looking for in that genre. But I think an option, Chuck, for what I think could be you need to be you can't go too big with your character change if you're going to have, you can't have a huge global character change like from total good to total evil, because you can't do that over and over again. But you can have smaller changes in your character, smaller facets, like, maybe they hit a blind spot. Like, I didn't realize I believe this about this topic. And then they're confronted with that, and that could be something that changes throughout the story arc. So changing facets and layers and stuff, and you can have regression, because life's never like, now I've won and I'll never have to face that again.
Right, exactly.
And you can only do that so many times. Like if your character was, an alcoholic, you can only have them relapse so many times before it's just depressing. But you could have them face a challenge. Maybe they've gotten over that, but now their partner is struggling with it, and so they're going to have to re-face the same demons kind of through proxy through their partner. So they can have some of those challenges. And it's, like I said, doesn't always have to be change, I think, but it has to be like a deeper revelation of the character is kind of like change in a way, because it's change for us as the people who are consuming it. Because we're like, I read Michael Connelly said that his life's mission as a writer was just to develop Harry Bosch to his fullest potential. Right. And so the more books you read about, he
is a fantastic example of how to do that.
And but you'll see there's a very long arc, and so like in the beginning of the books, things that he's having character change. Beginning of the series, his daughter's like little, but by like book 12 or 14, his daughter's like going to China or something. I can't remember if I read that one all the way through or not. It's been years, but so he has different problems.
Yeah, and he retires and becomes a PI, and he worked cold cases. He did all of that stuff, and I think it is a balance of change in circumstance and character's reaction to the change in circumstance. Mm-hmm. And then the thing with his daughter, and then his ex. I don't know if they did this. Did they kill her in the books? I can't remember. But anyway, just then you have those side characters who you can watch them grow and change too. And that the point I'm trying to make is, a lot of readers will latch on to a, say, action adventure or mystery or whatever, and it could be a reader who is more interested in character development than mystery or action. But as long as there's somebody in there that they can follow and see change and stuff, you can broaden your audience by having those different elements in there. You can get the people who like the action hero, but then the people who like to watch characters change can root for the daughter or the sidekick or whatever. So it's it's a way to balance those things to get more people's eyes in your stuff.
Yep. And I think if you have a successful change, then they have to, it's kind of like you have to defend the title to be a champion. So like maybe in book 3, they have this character change, but by book 4, they're like, they got to defend it. It's like I'm starting to kind of regress, but I don't want to, so you can have a character struggle in place of character change.
Well, one of the things too, I think it depends on like we're talking about kind of a James Bond-esque trope. So one of the things that's interesting about that is it really kind of depends on if you're writing a linear series or a non-linear series, where it's just you're writing a James Bond-esque character, but the books are not, they're not in sequence, right? So like you can come into the series at any point in time and read the book, and it doesn't matter whether it's the 7th book or the 1st book, and your experience is going to be the same.
Right. I think in those cases you don't want a lot of character change.
Right, exactly.
You want it to be a villain of the week kind of situation.
Yeah. Okay, well, we have hit our hour, and like always, I think our conversations go quickly, and we could sit here and talk about character development, I think, all day, that's one of my favorite things, is to talk about characters. So plot's kind of easy. Characters are where I think it's tough, especially in the development process, to get that development correct. But thank you, everybody who was watching live in the live chat. Let's see, John and Rick, Mike Fedderson, welcome, and thanks for joining us today. Nagling, thanks for your comments. What else is in here? Silent Wolf, Kayleen, I saw earlier. Lauren saw earlier. Corey Gillum was here. Corey and Rick were battling it out for the first top spot today. But thank you guys, everybody that's watching live. If you're listening to the audio feed and you didn't know, we have a live show Monday mornings, 10-ish. We will have live shows. If you missed the Writer's Journey last Friday, they had Jonathan Mayberry on. It was a fantastic show. If you missed that, go back and check it out. I'm not sure who they have on this week, but it'll be Friday 2-ish, and go hang out with those people. And then tomorrow morning, Walt should be doing Coffee and Concepts, and that's always a fun show to watch and hang out with Walt. So
I think everybody should leave some comments too. Leave some comments in the YouTube feed, especially you could talk about Josh's shelves, if nothing else.
Yes. Talk about my collectibles and tell me which one you like. Scott says ish. It's always very ish on a Monday. So thanks everybody, and make sure you come back next week. We're going to talk about some writing, we're going to talk about some reading, and of course everything in between right here on Keystroke Medium. Peace.
Latest.